welcome to the Directors Forum. I'm Geneva Overholser. I'm the Director of the Journalism School. It's great to have you all here. We have a treat today because we have two colleagues of our own who are doing some really cool hyperlocal news. And each of these colleagues is going to speak with us for just a little while, and then, if it's okay with you, we'll kind of reserve questioning for afterward and talk about the whole kit and caboodle. So I'm going to introduce first Anne Doe. Anne said she'll introduce herself, but I want you to know she has such an interesting background. Comes from one of the great newspaper-owning families here, founded the largest Vietnamese-language newspaper in Orange County, still is the largest, and you're vice president of it, George. And Anne has worked for a number of newspapers, the Dallas Morning News, Seattle Times, and for a long time for the Orange County Register, including as a columnist there. She's long been associated with Annenberg, where she is a graduate, and she has taught here as an adjunct and is now the managing editor of LA Spot Us, which she'll tell you all about. And she'll also introduce Christy. So I'll turn it over now to Anne.
Thank you, everybody. I know that you'll have lots of good questions for us after you fill up your tummies. So eat up and be really fast about it. This is Christy, who was a student in one of my classes. And from the first day, I really liked her kind of energy and being opposite of shy. So when I got a special fund to hire student interns for some of my web projects, I called on her right away. And she is a junior majoring in PR, and she's learning how to report live and post and meet deadlines. And as a result, she's probably considering an alternative career in magazine journalism. I will have Christy demo the site while I talk a little bit and introduce you. How many people have heard of Spot.us? Very good. Well-read crowd. And, we're a crowdsourcing project, which means that we collaborate with members of the public, news publishers, and news editors to put together the final product. It can be in print. It can be in web-based, it could be television, it could be a radio piece, or it could be multimedia with all of those elements. And right now, when there's so much budget cuts, people are wondering, how am I going to pay for this local story or an investigation? And what we do is we create a community where members of the public can join and choose the kinds of stories that they feel is important for coverage. And all of the stories have one link in common, that they're locally based. LA Spot Us covers all of LA County, and we have areas that cover the Bay Area, Seattle, Minnesota, and also nationally around the country. But here where you live is our most important priority. We are trying to cover everything from economics, which I love the fact that Gabriel is going to be teaching that class next year. We try to cover metro news, personal news, as well as politics. And here is a menu. If you go on the web and you type in la.spot.us, that will take you directly to us. No need to type in www or all of that extraneous letters. When you come onto our site, you will see 4 top buttons. Start a story is for reporters trying to pitch stories. Fund a story is our entire menu of the stories that we're pursuing at a given time. And you can feel free to read what they're about and the level of funding they are at. Read a story is stories that have been published by us or by our multiple editorial partners. And then earn credit is, I'll tell you about that in a little bit. Let's go to fund a story, Christy. Right now, we're doing stories on the homeless kids commute, urban economics, 10 best community gardens in LA, and some of these topics fall under an area called quality of life issues. The reason we're covering that is because we had applied for a Cal Endow grant earlier in the year to fund coverage of quality of life issues. Those are things from like noise pollution, personal security, health, transportation. You might want to know, what is personal security? The California Endowment had done a survey of its membership and grantees and the public and asked, what are some of the most important issues that you find in LA that are uncovered? And it's things like, will my parents make it home in time for me to hug them goodnight before I go to sleep? This is from the words of a 10-year-old child. And so those are the kinds of issues that we're going to fund with this grant. And we were able to hire a reporter and a blogger. That will debut in a few weeks. We're going to start a special report called LA Vitamin, and the blog will be called The Daily Vitamin. And some of those people are in the past Annenberg colleagues or Annenberg contributors. The reason we want to do this is because we feel that there's so many issues that members of the public, just your average residents, average readers, average television viewer, know about, that they don't have access to finding someone to cover it. So we have a portion for members of the public to go in and give the reporters tips. When you join Spot Us, and I hope that some of you will join as a result of hearing about us today, we don't ever spam you, I promise. And we don't sell your email addresses. You join for free and you get regular email updates about the things that we're pursuing, how you can help. If you're a student here at Annenberg, we have assignments for each of the stories being pursued by professionals. Like they may need special photos being taken for this particular topic. They can put out the assignments in each of the photo category. And you click in, and if you'd like to do that assignment, then you just click something and then you sign up for it, and then we review your application and we get back to you promptly. So I really urge you to participate in that and find a way to build your clips portfolio in different ways. Please interrupt me if you have questions now or else later on. Christy's going to talk about the 3 stories that she's done for us. Currently, we try to get our interns a very practical experience, so it's a paid internship. I don't believe in working for free, and I don't believe students should work for free. So we have openings for 2 interns each semester, and right now we have an opening for 1. So if you're interested, see me afterward, and we can talk about how you can send in your resume. Christy just had this story published, and it went on multiple sites. So maybe you can talk about that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is a story that I wrote called The Fixation with Morbid Death Scenes, and basically the story was based off of the Ambassador Hotel and making it into a school. It's kind of what prompted the story of what is it that draws us to these sites that, you know, where there's these tragic histories, and we did a lot more research. I did a lot of interviews of a lot of the famous crime scenes like Manson murders or River Phoenix, or
you know, when the high school for Robert Kennedy just opened its doors, and we just thought, why is it in LA there's always this fixation with where all the grisly events occur? So we started mapping it and going through the whole thing past 4 decades, and then also delving into how this has become a cottage industry, tourism on its own. And the idea for our student interns is you start them at stories that we call the quick hits. They would take 2 to 3 weeks to do. And you go out, you're guided by editors, and you do interviews, and you meet deadlines, and you take photos, or you do multimedia ingredients for the main package. And then my job would be to place this. Whenever we have something turned in on any medium, I would try to contact one of our editorial partners or go cold call somebody and try to get this republished, re-aired, or rebroadcast on a different platform and in different languages if possible. The Spot Us content is free for republishing because we want to give people news. And on this story that Christy did, it was translated into Spanish and published in La Opinión. It was republished in a small newspaper in Western Massachusetts. It made it into the travel section of the Orange County Register, things like that. And so each time that happens, you know, we get our news shared, but we get more members, more supporters in. Supporters donate anywhere from $5 to the maximum is 20% of what a story is valued. So if a story is valued $1,000, you can only donate up to 20%. So that erases any questions of ethics, like undue influence on the coverage of a story. So you're not saying like, I'm gonna call the shots because I'm donating all of $1,000. And you know, we're a nonprofit, mainly supported by the Knight Foundation, so you get a tax deduction. Yes?
How do they go about obtaining the story? Do they just cut and paste it, or is there a link, is there a contact to...
You mean another news publisher?
Yes, another news publisher.
Yeah.
How do they contact you and get the story?
Oh, there's our contact information on the site, but also I reach out to a lot of news publishers and I said, hey, we have this coming up. Might you be interested? And let me get everyone in touch with each other and let's talk about covering this in a specific angle interested to you.
For example, how did the Massachusetts paper find out about this? Are they subscribers to Spot.us, or are they...
Some of them are members, yes.
Okay.
Because we've gone national,
Right.
but LA Spot Us covers just LA County. Yeah, but thanks for your question. And you're my first question maker. I have a preschooler, so we made cupcakes last night.
Oh, well, great. Thank you.
No need to feel guilty. It's a cream cheese frosting. Yeah, right. And so you're going to go out and work on one of our assignments, so you work the calories off.
I can't eat them all.
Yes,
she
so
can.
You have to ask one question.
Yes, she can.
Yeah. Let's see. The earned credits is really interesting. We're trying to find ways to support the model besides personal donations. So we went to different corporations who are interested in advertising, and instead of creating a banner ad, which is really boring and stationary and doesn't excite anybody, we will create a community survey for them. So say you're Levi's, we'll create a 5-minute survey with 5 questions that ask something like, what was the last brand of jeans that you bought? What are the 3 factors that influence your purchase? And then our members go into the Earn Spot credit, and then they take the survey, and then they'll get like $5 to $10 in credit, which you can apply to the story of your choice. And that's another way that you can contribute to Spot Us if you happen not to have the budget to donate yourself. I'm going to turn it over to Pekka, who has a really great project, and then maybe later on you'll ask us both questions and finish off the cupcakes. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, both Anne and Christy. And yes, we'll have obviously more questions with the cupcakes. I can tell that. Okay, so another colleague is Pekka Pekkala, who is with us this year as a research scholar and research fellow in sustainable journalism, I think, with an emphasis on hyperlocal and sustainability in hyperlocal. He got his degree here in the Master's in Specialized Journalism program last year. We like to bring back our own. He comes from a remarkable newspaper background in Finland, the largest newspaper, oldest in Scandinavia, I think. Largest in Scandinavia, most influential, most excellent, the word, where you've done project development and mobile, and you brought the newspaper onto the website and all kinds of cool things. And now you're with us, and we're delighted to hear about what you're doing and all this year.
Yep. Hi all. Let's see if I can. So, anyone who uses Windows, how do you make this? At the bottom, at the very bottom. There. Yeah. Thanks. I'm a Mac person, so I'm pretty used to it. So, hi all. My name is Pekka Pekkala. I'm a, let's say, Pekka Pekkala. English way to say welcome all. I'm going to tell you about what I do here at Annenberg. So as Geneva said, I used to work for the biggest newspaper for 13 years. I'm a tech columnist. That's my spot there, which I get every 3 weeks. And I also work as a head of development, producer. I had a nice time there, but now I'm here and trying to create new stuff again. And I did the specialized journalism program last year and had a heavy emphasis on entrepreneurship. And there was a lot of talk at school about, you have to go out and find your own way to do business because the job situation is what it is. And I thought, okay, I do some research. What are the business models out there you can actually start on your own? And what I did, I did my thesis on these 4 sites in Echo Park, where I used to live last year. And I basically wanted to find out who are those local bloggers, why they do it, and do they make any money out of it? Because at least I'm not independently wealthy, so I have to actually get paid for writing, as I'm said. It's an actual job, you want money out of it. And the short answer is like, no, they don't make any money out of this. But I think this is just the beginning of something bigger. So this is what I'm trying to find out. Sustainable business models for network hyperlocal journalism. And I'm going to explain this the way that I was taught in philosophy class, how to answer a test question that you don't understand. You break it apart by the words, explain all of them, and you probably get a B-. So the first word we are going through is hyperlocal. I mean, try it. Last weekend I was at the ONA at Washington, DC, which was a really good conference, being a journalism conference. There was a big focus on hyperlocal. And let me ask you a question, like, where do you get your local news, like neighborhood news in LA? Anyone? Okay?
Email.
Email. Well, that's impressive. How do you do it?
Well, it's actually my aunt. This is not actually me, this is my aunt. This is my aunt's example. She lives in a neighborhood where she's the block captain. And the way it works is that people send her news about burglaries and things like that. And then she disperses it out to the rest of her neighborhood. And that's the sort of interesting hyperlocal example.
Awesome. Hyperlocal by email. Anyone else?
I live by USC, so sometimes I read the Daily Trojan, but I also get the downtown LA news. But that's not really like daily news. That's a weekly paper. Daily Trojan, of course, is more concerned with just the USC area. But I also, my girlfriend lives in Marina Del Rey, and I get the Argonaut, which is the local paper there. Same sort of thing as it's a free paper, but they don't really report the little, like you said, the burglaries or the, those kinds of, more the big projects, things that are going on in the neighborhood and the area. Yeah. Both the downtown LA News and the Argonaut, and the Grunion, because the Grunion Gazette in Long Beach, all those local papers up and down the coast and in the neighborhoods.
So there's lots of stuff going on in the hyperlocal from email to newspapers, and there's also lots of talk like, what is hyperlocal exactly? And let's see. So one of the great websites that was introduced on ONA was West Seattle Blog. I think this won the award for best community news site. And some facts: they have 8,200 followers on Twitter. They have 5,000 fans on Facebook. Self-sustainable for 2 years. Tracy Record, the lady who does the site, said that she hasn't touched her 401k, that's the pension fund, right? Yeah. She hasn't touched the money for 2 years. So it's actually sustainable. She pays all her rent, all her car. And she said she lives a modest lifestyle. Anyway, it's sustainable and it's been for 2 years. And one thing I want to point out to all the people, students that are thinking about probably starting their own website, look at the website. I mean, I'm not a graphic designer, but it's probably not the prettiest website to see. And this is the most hyped blog right now, which gets awards and gets being sustainable. So lots of times people spend way too much time about thinking how it looks. stuff in the middle in here. This is their points. Actually brings it to reach. And the way they make money is basically selling ads in their own local neighborhood. Okay, so hyperlocal in my terms is just neighborhood level journalism, like zip code, tens of thousands of people. Echo Park has 45,000. I think West Seattle has somewhere around 60,000. So it's not that niche. I mean, that's a big city, 50,000 people. It's all relative. So the next three words: sustainable business models. What is the sustainable? As I explained, for me, it's kind of you can pay your rent, and this is kind of where the whole thing gets interesting. This DavisonNews.net, who they were presenting at ONA at the Fund Your Site pre-seminar on Thursday, and they are actually making revenue of $90,000 a year, which I think is pretty awesome for a small site. And especially the community is only 10,000 people, but I've been told it's very good. And but the founder, David Boras, he's living on his savings and retirement tax. He is not actually taking any salary. He's paying two part-time writers and a marketing person, but he believes this is going to be a bigger business, so any money he gets in, he actually invests to the side and lives off from his savings. So this was a really good tweet that kind of describes the situation. That, this is lots of the startups you hear about get funded by the pension plans or savings that are gathered during doing all sorts of journalism. And I think that this is something that doesn't really work for if you're a student and want to start a site. These models doesn't suit you because you don't have those savings available that you can live on 3 to 5 years and try to make everything sustainable. So my attitude, it has to be sustainable the way that you can basically start off with very little money and start making money right away. Because even with the college lifestyle, you need some money, especially in LA. So, yeah.
Most startups are friends and family, and then once you're up and running, then you go to an angel.
Yeah, and there's of course lots of grants coming in. But one thing about grants, like this is the image I have. It's like I got a grant. Run the site for three years, and then somehow the money comes from somewhere, right? And well, that's not true. At the ONA, lots of the speakers made a specific point that when you try to apply for a grant nowadays, they actually require you have a business plan and a sustainability plan. So you really cannot think like it's free money. Plus, some of the foundations have certain missions, and when you get money, they expect you to give some return to that mission. And sometimes it might be, you might have some difficulties with the foundation agreeing on what is the actual mission and what is the best way of actually doing it. So in my opinion, working for profit is much simpler. You show the numbers, we are making money, so business guys usually don't pay the interest that you actually write. As long as you bring in the audience and the money, that's it. The business side is something good. So what I'm going to do with my year here is try to do kind of business cases. This is a good example, of course. I'm not, I kind of do as well as our business cases. But this is what you read in business school. You read and read and read through the different business cases, business models, and that's how you basically learn. And these are really simply written. So if anyone knows the term executive summary, so that's basically like the very simple language so that the CEO, people who don't have time, understand what's going on. And these are the few of the sites I'm going to interview and make a case study out of them. And my idea is like really drill down deep to how they work, where they do get the money, different revenue sources. how many people are working, and very kind of basic approach to the research. And this presentation is available through my Twitter account. I'll give you the address later on. But these two here are pretty good places to start from if you are considering doing anything hyperlocal. Knight did the New Voices What Words report. It's at least for me it was pretty much an eye opener, like what actually works when you start doing hyperlocal. And then there is the Reynolds Journalism Institute, Michelle's list, promising local news sites, it's an extensive list, but gives you a really good idea of what people are doing right now. And through this, I hope I get done hopefully like 10 case studies that might be helpful for the graduating class or the small businesses out there, or for the Annenberg intersection, the South LA project and the Alhambra project. I'm trying to help them as well to find out ways to make money. And the last piece I'm going to talk about is the networking. This is kind of my big subject I'm interested in. And this is something you probably, if anyone heard Sharon Lanier speak at the campus, this is something he's talking a lot about. And it's basically based on the Ted Nelson's idea of one copy. And you know, in music, what it means that instead of having all these walled gardens that you buy your music from, iTunes, Amazon, Zoom, all these small sites, the internet makes it possible that we could actually share one copy that the creator put out on the web. So we all, when we listen to the song, if it's on iTunes or iPad or your MP3 player, we could be listening to the one single copy of the song instead of having all these walled gardens. And the original author would get paid some. And there is a term called trans-publishing, which Ted Nelson has wrote an article about, which kind of explores this idea. And my idea is like what it would do for news if actually instead of newsrooms all around the world, we copy the same things and change the headline or change just the small parts of the story. What if we started thinking this way, that actually linking is the thing to do, and what it would do for all the hyperlocal sites, so that instead of when there is a shooting in Echo Park, instead of LA Times copying the story, they just link to it. So East Sider LA would probably get lots of clicks, find ways to make money out of it. And you know, this is what happens nowadays. There's, from this morning, story on Obama, there is 7,772 copies of the story. That's insane. It's internet. You know, you don't have to make copies. You just link to it, right? So I think it's a really profound idea that probably is going to change the way we do journalism and news even more than the fact that you can do real-time publishing. Because at one point, people will, there's going to be more and more and more copies. Like in 3 years, that's going to be probably like 100,000. And at some point, it's going to, go over the peak, and people start asking them, why I'm reading all these copies. There has to be some other way to do this more efficiently. Actually use the full power of the internet. And so what I do the case studies in journalism, business models, and that's my way of researching this bigger idea of one copy and how you can actually use the digital media the way it was meant to do instead of doing data stories. And one more thing, as you might find, I'm not explaining the word journalism because we don't have all day and it's really hard to say what is journalism nowadays. So I only took the easy parts from my presentation. So that's it. Questions?
Great. Let's remember that, and at this point we'll open it to questions for all three folks. So there you go.
When you have such an oversaturation in journalism, so many different cable and regular news channels, in your opinion, how do you distinguish between how do you decide, okay, this one's better because it's more concise reporting, and how do you tell the difference? How do you decide whether to watch this one or that one or the other one?
That's a good question. I think what I'm thinking about is the originality. So just basic breaking news that don't have so much opinion or style in them. Just reporting, the normal traffic. Somebody said something type of thing. And Google actually does this already. If you didn't know, the way Google News ranking works is Google News knows basically, because it's a massive computer, so it knows which story was published first. And if you make it like a comment story on the original story and you don't include the link in the first paragraph of the original one, your Google ranking goes like this. Your story never appears on the front page. So it's already happening. The originality is already a big thing, and it's happening in the news. So if you do run an aggregation news site, make sure you always link to the original piece in the first paragraph.
In that list of sites that you're researching, hyperlocal sites, what are you finding, because I know there was some argument about this at ONA, that they start off with a really strong business plan or they start off with a really good idea? Because I think there's some argument of which is most important. And I mean, especially in like West Seattle Blog's idea, case, they just started off with a really good idea and provided a service.
Well, Rahat Ali, the guy who ran with the paid content and then sold it out to Guardian, he had a really good, because this was a discussion, I don't know if you were in the heated room, and he said that, you guys just talk too much about doing it, like just do it, like the business plan comes out later, and you just, West Seattle Blog is a perfect example. It's not pretty, it's not well funded, somebody just started doing it. But the thing is that they actually started to think about the money from the day one. So they wanted it to be, and that's basically the thing you have to do. It's like thinking about the money is half of your job, because doing the content is just the other half. Well, that's what people doing this say.
How many people in the room read regular neighborhood blogs? Downtown blog? It's a great place to get story ideas and sources, things like that for the students. How many are journalism students in the room? I'm glad to see more diversity in this crowd.
Not just same old journalism students.
Yes. We need more topics. One of the questions I'm often asked is, how do you decide the value of what is a story worth? We fund freelancers. We don't fund staff writers because they're already earning money at their place of work. So, what we do is freelancers from around the nation and around LA come to us, and they'll say, I have this great idea. How do I get this in? Are you interested? And then we go through the vetting process. And we have 5 levels of stories that we decide the dollar value on. From the quick hit to the smaller featurey investigative piece to the real serious top of the line one. And we have everything from students learning journalistic chops working for us to Pulitzer Prize winners. And we want to provide the deep array of that because we want different kinds of news. Because we know that the audience varies. It's not just going to be like your neighborhood person. It could be a local official. We've had city council people take our content and then use that in their districts. We also have had legislators and also people from different mediums and languages translate and extract. The radio pieces will cut the print story. We can go really long, like we could have a 2,000 word, 3,000 word story easily because we're online. But then if we want to get that republished in print, they'll say, you know what, 800 words max, and we can edit that down for you.
But the interesting question of sustainability, going back to Pekka's picture of the sandy feet by the ocean. You all are funded primarily by grants, and I know there is some hope of becoming sustainable over the long haul. I don't know if you want to talk about that. That's an interesting challenge, right?
Yeah, I think that's a huge challenge. Right now we have percentages of how much is from personal donations and how much is from credits. And overall, it's still mostly funded by personal donations. And we have, speaking of money, Geneva, we have a question that people ask. Do you get the story produced if the fundraising goal isn't met? Maybe we could go into fund a story. Say a story is worth $500 and it's due 2 weeks from the day of listing. And after 10 days, you can pretty much see how much it fundraises. Let's go into urban economics. This is written by somebody who is also a contributor to Annenberg. And he
has a blog called Leimert Park, which is another
Leimert Park. And so you can see when it's due and where he is at fundraising. And so like in 10 more days, we'll go to him and we'll say, okay, this has raised like $1,500, maybe not, $50 shy of your goal. Do you still want to go through with it? And they have that discretion whether they want to go through with it or not. And the majority of the time, 9 times out of 10, people go through with it because they have already started on the reporting and are blogging on the reporting as we go along. So we have like 89% of our stories that become fully funded. We don't guarantee that you're going to meet your fundraising goal, but 89% of it does. Yes?
I want to take this idea and go back to Pekka for a question. So
sure.
These stories, you guys assign a number to them at the beginning, or the writers assign a number to them at the beginning of what it would cost to produce the story. Have you done any math on any of those hyperlocal sites, like the ones that are actually earning money, to figure out what it costs those hyperlocal journalists to do their stories, and to see if there's a, I'm just curious, is it cheap? Are they operating, are they doing it inexpensively comparatively?
I have somewhere in my notes a couple of estimates how much it is to run the site, but the 2 examples, it's around the 100,000 mark that you actually can hire people. Of course, the salaries you pay are pretty low, and I think the idea behind Spot Us is that it's not, and the whole hyperlocal sustainable cuisines, that there is no single revenue stream that you can count on. So Spot Us would be great to do something, but since I know that I spoke to David more about Spot Us, and they sometimes they see clearly that this won't get any fund. David talked about how do you sometimes say to the contributors that it's a good idea, I don't have anything against it, but it might not get money.
Yeah,
so it's not like you can fund everything.
Right.
It has to be a story that is actually.
So Pekka's the realistic person, and I'm optimistic. What happens is, we've been doing it for a while now, so we kind of have a sense of what things fund and what may not. And so we are very much about full disclosure, and we'll say, this idea is fantastic, but I don't think people will go for it, but it's up to you, and if you want to try it as an experiment, let's do it. And, there was a guy that is in Seattle, he wants to climb one of the mountains up there and wants to write, an investigative piece about that, and we said, this will never raise money.
And it also, just to add to that, it also, with this model, requires the journalists to do sort of their own advertising as well. I know I've reached out to my networks and reached out to my personal contacts and said, hey, there's surveys, or I'm doing a story if you want to fund me, or there's other, I've also referred them, I know you're really interested in this story. And so it gets the individual reporters like really pushing because, at the end of the day, it's up to the individual reporter to get funded.
So in other words, we didn't know that this involves a lot of marketing, but you learn a lot about the process and how to promote what you're working on. And so for somebody like Christy, who's a PR major, she's getting practice about, hey, I'm doing this really cool story and you guys need to support me. And I often find myself going to new groups and just like a room full of strangers talking about what we do and asking them to join us and support our efforts and, you know, challenge us, debate with us, and help us come up with a way to bring the news locally to you in a better format or with better ideas.
We got 3 questions.
Just to follow on that point, what do you find is the biggest motivating factor for people to contribute, and how many people are repeat contributors, and you know, how do you kind of keep that in?
Thank you for your question. We actually find that we actually have a file on each member, and you know, it's very innocent, very sweet. It's not anything that's gonna follow you around, and we see how much they contribute over time. It's basically all about personal passion. The issues that really motivate or people care about, they're going to put, you know, their money where their mouth is. But we also have to promote the stories, like, hey, this is going on because there's so many things competing with your daily interest. So we're out in the community, we tweet it, we are on Facebook, everything like that.
Well, one thing they do that's worth noting, when you do fund a story, or for example, if you use one of these earned credit things, then you get emails later, you know, when it's reaching a certain point, or
right.
So they sort of, you begin to become part of the community.
And then if a story takes 2 months to report, you get blog posts, to like a thread that follows the story as we go through the process. So it gives you kind of an update and reminder. Yes, sir.
Yes, Pekka, on the business model side, so you talked about this West Seattle blog and that the lady is somewhat you know, making some kind of a living there. I'm wondering, how do they go about selling ads? And where I'm kind of leading towards is, I think a really good indication for the sustainability of the business model would be if the big ad networks jumped into the hyperlocal market. I was wondering whether you have any evidence of that at this point.
Not really. Mostly they are doing their own sales thing. And Davidson News, they actually hired a person to do that actually goes and makes the call. And the basic message from ONA, in my opinion, was that if you are not ready to make the sale yourself, don't even bother. Like, don't start the site, because that's what you have to do. And the other one is that selling is, you know, much more than just, you know, showing numbers. This is how many visitors you have. Please come to our buy an ad. It's you know how salespeople are. it's the art of selling, getting you to sign the check. So it's very difficult.
Yeah, it's really unusual because I've always been really passionate about the reporting and writing process. But I find myself liking the sales part more and more because it's a challenge. And I'm fascinated now by advertising, and that's what I look at first when I pick up a newspaper these days. And so I get really challenged when it's like, okay, go make a presentation to X. And so we've done a number of that, and we've gotten surveys funded by HP, and we just did one with R. We've done local mortgage companies, things like that, and we want to raise our profile through advertising as well.
I just say one thing before I forget. Daniel Gerson from Alhambra Source told me if there's any students in the room that there is a limited number of paid internships. If you are interested, the email is editor@alhambrasource. You get the email from me. And one thing about the being paid or not paid, the citizen journalism, if you have heard about it, like people contributing for free. If you have any illusions how easy it is to get people to contribute, please read this. You can find it online from JLab. New Voices, What Works. It's a really, really good report about how big is the drop rate. You train 10 journalists, citizen journalists. 2 of them might hang out 3 months, then they leave. You have to train a whole new bunch. So the idea of, like, again, the easiness, like what I mentioned in the grant section, it's like that you actually get people to work for you for free without not putting an effort is pretty much false according to this study. But it has also sides that have made it work.
There seemed to be, let's go to the issue of raising money, getting donations. There seemed to be a lot of interest in showbiz or tabloid news, as opposed to hard news, or that's just the way it is.
Yeah, that's and I think that's the hard part. I met a couple of celebrity bloggers at ONA. One of them ran the site for the Kardashian. One of them, I'm not really familiar with their family, but he said that they are making tons of money just by posting stuff about this particular lady, and no grants needed, no reason. As long as you post her pictures on the web, everybody wants to go back. So the problems I'm talking about are about the hardcore, like the actual useful information that you actually need to leave.
That's nothing new, right? Because like the LA Times, I mean, the calendar section helps support the rest of the paper, right? So maybe the only one of the interesting things here is how we're splitting these things apart. And so you'll have the celebrity side so separate from just the rest of the news organization, and how does the news organization help? And I don't know that's that question, but it seems to me that this is not a news issue at all.
One of the keys to what both Pekka and I do is collaboration. In this age of journalism, everyone needs to work with everyone else. And the good thing about our project being here at Annenberg is because we have the luxury and the special connection of other projects within Annenberg that we can work with, such as Neon Tommy or the Alhambra Source. And Spot Us is actually about to launch our collaboration with both of those projects. And so you'll see that. And so we always try to find ways to involve more students. We don't want to make it a student-only site, and right now we have mostly professional work, but we want students to learn from the professionals and find ways to interact. And I thought maybe Christy could speak briefly about what it's like to do more on the street reporting.
Right. Well, doing an internship with Spot Us, I mean, it's experience that you're not going to get anywhere else, especially because I am working with Anne and David and some of my editors who have been in this field their entire lives. And so I get to talk with her on a personal basis and, call her if I have any questions, or like I was going to a city council meeting the other day and I was like, last minute advice. And, to be able to do that and to be able to have, to be able to work professionally, not just in a student-only paper or something, and be able to be in a professional field, but be able to be a student in a professional field is an experience that, I'm going to learn so much.
Yeah, and we're very frank in the editing.
And
so,
just to note that David, who has been mentioned several times, is David Cohn, C-O-H-N, who goes by Digidave on Twitter and elsewhere. He's been here several times, has spoken with us, but also a really interesting young thinker on the scene. So yeah, thanks.
Do you have some limitations for the stories? I mean, maybe less focus in politics and more focus on family issues? And what are your general standards in picking stories?
Is that for me? Okay. For Anne.
Oh, the general standards in picking stories?
Yeah,
we like a diversity of topics. Thank you for your question. And we always try to cover a little bit of everything. Right now, our focus during this election season has involved a few election pieces, but we try to do community politics, economics, just local issues, anything of importance. We have done sports. If you have a good idea that's compelling, that's creative, we'll work with you. And we help you during the brainstorm process. If you have an idea that's not quite there yet, we'll give you some resources or some tips on how to create like a very compelling pitch. And also I can put you in touch with people who have written for Spot Us before and who have published successfully, so you can talk to them. so you don't just have to talk to me, and my view might be a little bit biased.
How many editors do you have, and are they paid? I mean, what happens? How does it work?
Remember when I said I don't believe in making you work for free?
Right.
Yes, we'll pay you. There's me, and we have an assistant editor, and then we have our site founder, which is David, who is brilliant and came up with this project idea and won the Night News Challenge. So they funded his Spot Us website. And you know, it's a play on a spot.us word.
Something I want to mention, like the Spot Us model is very, like the complete reversal of the traditional way of making money, because when you publish a newspaper and sell it to the advertisers, you are not selling the content. You are not advertisers are not paying for the content or a single story. They are paying for the audience. And what you guys are doing is exactly the opposite, like actually paying to produce the content. So it's kind of really new way of making money. I mean, of course, the subscription fees have been there always, but they are just a minor part of the income of any newspaper.
And if you're not a writer but you like to edit, we also have something called peer review editing. And so you can sign on to any story that's being pursued as a peer review editor. We review your qualifications and accept you. And so you can work with the reporter through the process and just add to your portfolio and get more involved. I just find it, real participatory and a sense of collaboration with that as well. How many people are going to join Spot Us?
No pressure or anything. You got a cupcake. One thing I wanted to mention, I'm sorry, is that one interesting economic development is that some bloggers, a few anyway, like Blog Downtown, as an example, are starting print publications. Blog Downtown, which of course has been a blog, has now come out with is it a weekly?
It's a weekly.
Yeah, which is a really interesting new development. They did it because of the advertising, of course. The advertisers still felt that it was going to be more...
That's something really important to remember on the transition period. It's like, we can be very tech savvy and digital at school and train journalists to be the most savvy people in the business. But the fact is that the advertisers probably are not that savvy. They are happy to see their ad printed, even though it goes to like 1,000 people instead of the 100,000 digital ad on the web. So it's something that was on the O&A discussions as well. Advertisers are not savvy.
Yeah, it's a new model, and we're still experimenting with it. Overall, it's just like 2 years and 4 months old, and the LA website is about a year old.
Well, this was terrific, and we thank you so much.
Pekka, where was that Grant's picture taken? Just out of curiosity.
For those who I sort of thought they
Like for the movie.